said about Kamala Harris is that don't belong. That's not really what the president wants.
Yeah, no, but I also think that just like he did in the first debate against Joe Biden, I think that's one thing here is to constantly tie Kamala Harris to the Biden administration where Trump is winning, like making her on the economy, inflation, and all the other problems that are happening, and then sit back and let her talk, let her explain herself, her practice positions, her positions. How does she feel about how Biden is running her economy? How does she feel about the border? And then turn her over and let her talk.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the March.
I have to say, I do feel such a complex question today. This is such an extraordinary when he says that we will send up our life to the life of the most consequential federal decade of almost certainly in the last one. So with since you say so why, President David just moments where you have the entire news division keeping on everything, that checking on the live law, all the way down right here today now, just 10 seconds away, you building back with all those things that we're talking about.
So let's have one more candidate to see. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump. Welcome to Trump. It's wonderful to have you.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and helpful time.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue. and that is the economy and cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, assuming President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised in the middle class, and I'm actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is lifting up the middle class of the people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, and dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity fund. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and houses, and cost housing is too expensive for far too many. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax cut that we've given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a kid, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. I was actually, my mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We called her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion from America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year, because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
First of all, I don't sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that we're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done in the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. There's going to be billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they had to get the tariff off because there was so much money they had. They were totally destroying everything that they set out to do. They're taking billions of dollars from China and other places that left the tariffs on. When I had it, they had tariffs and they had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country crisis, which breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60%, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country, from prisons to jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics. And also unions, unions are affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country. And they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality. And we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
The argument is immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on that.
Well, let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all this.
mark. Adam will describe.
Have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse, mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences. Run, spot, run. 4 sentences. Oh, Lord. She doesn't have a plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. And down on this. Is what she calls a national proposal tariffs, as pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The poll... will say 80 and 85 and even 9%.
Military basically sold us out. About China should be in sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what requires. On the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, actually for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Linsey?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill president in America. Then last month, Florida, you for a 6-week abortion ban. Initially, it said that it was too short, and you said, "quote I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks." But then, extended ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor born, what to do with the baby, execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that, and her vote. So the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's an execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born. is okay, and that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually the fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation of their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term, they don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban, because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Republicans and everybody else. And they wanted it back in the states, and I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter, because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it
Well, I won't have to, because again, and 2 things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then a boss, he spent abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because you're running me, then J.D. Vance has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I did discuss it with J.D. in all fairness. J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody couldn't be.
Time to respond, but I ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women are America voted for freedom.
Vice President.
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF.
Check.
And the other thing, you should ask.
I saw you
Will
went
she
to the
allow abortion
abortion
in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month? Okay, would you do that? Why don't you answer that question?
don't you answer the question? Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
I just thought it
Wade,
was
you could
funny
either do
that
abortions
Harris
in
was
the 7th
saying
month, the 8th
all these
month,
things about
and
Trump, which
then
just were obviously not true. He just said that he doesn't support banning abortion for like incest, rape, all that extra stuff. And she just like said, she's reading off cards. She just said, quote for quote, that he did support what he just said he didn't support. I feel like she's not really listening to what he's trying to say.
From Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped.
I just feel like she's not listening. She just keeps saying the same things over and over again that she's been saying, the things that have been like fed to her to say, even though they're not true. And Project 2025, Trump doesn't even support that. Even the people who made it didn't say that he supported it, and the Democrat Party is just trying to like spin it into saying that he supports it.
Came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks
Well,
who are
COVID obviously like hurt the economy a lot, but
it would have allowed us
Trump tried to leave jobs in the economy in a way that they would jump back, which we saw that during the Biden presidency, jobs like came back, and they like to claim that that was their doing, but it really wasn't.
for trafficking in guns. What do you think about Trump? How's he doing so far?
I think he's doing good. He's really funny. I like what he's saying. He's keeping us all entertained and like listening to what he's saying.
Instead of fixing
what are the things that you like so far that he said, the way he
and
responded?
understand, this comes at a time.
I just like that he keeps his word, and he never really changes what he says. He doesn't like waver his opinions in any sort of way. He kind of just sticks to what he believes, and he speaks from what he really thinks. So when you speak the truth, you don't have to keep up with all of your lies, just like Harris is. She's been lying about things. She says things that she doesn't really believe, so she goes back and she changes it. I feel like Trump just sticks to his word, and he always says the same thing. He always like speaks from what he truly believes.
So, do you think she's making sense about
windmills cause cancer? And what you will also notice is that
I don't think she's making sense. I don't think she's saying a whole lot that's like sustenance. I don't think she's really getting her point across.
you will not hear her talk about your
All right,
needs,
thank
your
you.
dreams, and your
full
desires.
name?
Yes. Ella Riker. Do you mean to spell it? ELLARIKER. I'm 19. I'm an accounting major. Yeah, I go to UNC Charlotte. I'm a sophomore. Thank you.
She said people started leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's buzzing them in and paying them to be there.
By the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole
Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from the world. You know that David Muir lawsuit a record high Biden restrictions we know
question is why did the administration until 6 months before the election to act, and you have done anything differently from President Trump does?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted. Do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during his rally.
To come into our country and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. Not going to be a war over Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the people. This is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase. Make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success,
I just want to clarify here, you bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
I see people on television saying the people on television saying my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people on television saying my dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what
It's extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congressmember Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if we didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
See, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books, and nobody else can. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of the economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration, because what we want to talk about immigration, let's get back to the deportation proposal that the Vice President has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you have no problem using the U.S. military. You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe the number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it. Because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they make. Crime in this country is through the roof, and we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
As you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that said they created.
Stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned. So last
democracy, and I think Russia investigation.
Mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that you're valued.
But she also has the focus of punishment. It's so easy. Because I think what we did is talk about the things she grew up from your experience. She grew up from how she was raised. The values that have instilled in her as a young life. But she excelled her and she her herself. And tonight she's talking to American people. Share with the world. Go to the institute and say, look, I have some ideas. I want to share with you. There's several things that we get over the last 4 years. But here's what I think we can do together over the next 4 years. We've talked about our problems, and really reminding American people that we go back to the chaos, the confusion, the disaster that made the points of American people go out and grow in 2020 inspired the former president. Say, I want to be president that will be all Americans. I want to be a strong leader, and here's the plan that I got to share with you. And Donna, of course, she has to open up to the finances in any way that don't go after. You know what? The biggest stage of the problem is the biggest stage. You know what? The first time I was looking at all the things that they do to I said to you, there's something to say about people who are now this is what they do. being said about Texas and the don't belong. That's not really what you're trying to do.
Yeah, no, but I also think that just like he did in the first debate against Joe Biden in Georgia that year, is to constantly tie Kamala Harris to the Biden administration where Trump is winning against her on the economy, inflation, and all the other problems that they're having, and then sit back and let her talk, let her explain herself, her past positions, her positions. How does she feel about how Biden is running her country? How does she feel about the border? And then turn it over and let her talk.
Well, look, at this point, he's in the worst hour of press because he just has to sit there and wait for the time to come when they get there early. And so he's there, he's not really spoken to. There's no real small talk there, nobody's trying to give him any kind of news. So let me ask you a question.
But she also has the focus tax, the punishment is so easy. Because I said to you, they talk about this thing to grow up in your experience, to grow up from how she was raised. The values that they instill in her in your life, but she is still in her, and she's suing herself, and tonight she's talking to American people, still with the world. Go to the institute and say, look, I have some ideas that I want to share with you. There's several things that we've done over the last 4 years, but here's what I think we can do together over the next 4 years. We've talked about ourselves, and really, we're not in American people. We're talking about the chaos, the confusion, the disaster,
Well, it's certainly Canadian. I mean, the reality is Donald Trump has denied a lot of his needs tonight. I mean, his support has always been almost unmovable. So, in a second, he's 190 people work for Kamala Harris. And you don't kind of talk about that with Donna. Kamala Harris is an angel for the safety economy, and she's been a role in the Biden administration. The board, their constitution is the criminal activity order, the criminal activity drones. What no role does it so really, the spotlight on Kamala Harris, I think, is way over the Biden administration. She wants to act like she's not in the public. So this is where the president is going to be. She's got a lot to get her for tonight, and I think that's where Donald Trump is really see where the
Well, one of the things he wants to do is have female voters for different. How does he attract female voters at the same time attract Democrats? See how we pronounce that? Things he set up Democrats and he's done the law. That's not really attractive.
Yeah, no, but I also think that just like he did in the first debate against Joe Biden, he has one thing here, is to constantly tie Kamala Harris to the Biden administration where Trump is leaning against her on the economy, inflation, and all the other problems that are happening, and then sit back and let her talk, let her explain herself and back positions, her positions. How does she feel about how Biden is running her economy? How does she feel about the border? And then turn her over and let her talk.
Okay, so much for tonight on the line.
So, since you say so why, President Kamala just in moments where you have the entire news that is keeping on everything, that checking on the live law, all down right here, today, now, just 10 seconds away, you building back with all those things that since they're over the
it's stressful, but it's also that time you just said there is no time. There is no, I'm sure you have many of these candidates right now, I think the same thing, they've studied, they're going to go out.
All right, let's bring somebody in who is dating on the general election is the former governor of New Jersey. So Chris, he says
well, look, he's even worse power of president because he just has to sit there and wait for the time to come when they get there early. And so he's not really
Stratton. I'm retired, though I drive for a local transportation company. I was a pastor. Yes. I am a registered voter. With that, yes. Ms. Harris, her manner of reaching out and presenting her policies has been has done nothing but go back to his same old 3 or 4 statements.
So did she exceed your expectations?
She has exceeded some of my expectations. Details on that. kind of stunned. Possibly providing supplies.
Robert Dixon. Correct. Correct. How old am I? 76. No, I'm from right outside Mount Airy, Philadelphia. I'm a member of the church here. I'm teaching at the church here. Semi. I'm an attorney, so we never retire. Yeah. Democrat. Those man's incompetent and he's trying to take over the country. You can't do that. You can't have that. You just have to stand up for what you're doing. Okay.
How do you think the debate is going?
Well, listen, as I expected, I think Donald Trump has done a lot of lying. He's had his own mind, his own set of facts on everything. He's sticking to them pretty much. Harris is trying to interact with him and putting out ideas and things of that nature. None of that he can address because he's just basically, lying. He's talking about all the people that come into the country, things are going down. We recovered from a horrible COVID pandemic, which he helped precipitate by his complete failure to handle the problem. They just want to talk about, so he just keeps repeating the same old lies. But if he lies big enough to people, we have a certain percentage of people that want to stick with him.
Do you think Harris is doing?
I think she's doing pretty, doing pretty. She's doing really well. He's trying to hit the points and talking about himself.
This is a very close election. It's days on the state. So do you think that she's doing enough to sliver of undecided tasks that she has to make?
More Democratic than it has. You can switch back and forth. He won. They really haven't won. Republicans really haven't won anything big in Pennsylvania since he won. So I think that we're in good stead with the people that we have in office now. They always vote for Bob Casey. They voted for Bob Casey when he and his father weren't running, but somebody else put their name up for Bob Casey years ago. That guy won because Pennsylvania's evidently like the name Bob Casey. So I think you're welcome.
Strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very clear. The President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief, the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
You talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan. Said Trump did the most amazing thing that has seen these countries.
And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected leaders. And this it's not again appreciated and the responsibility of the President of the United States to be Commander-in-Chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations
thank you.
with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But got involved. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told him, don't you do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. Many Americans behind him.
And the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, he would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on the break tonight. Your response at the police.
Eat you for lunch. Hey, that's it. No, eat you for lunch.
Yet again, I said it to be ultimately much less than
said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen, for years we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up. I say, one of the statements I made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Well, I'll tell you, I agree with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. Four presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. It was a weak deal, and here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. Now get this. And the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive world leaders. And this former president, as a president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role
So, if you take a look at that period of time, it was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban, because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved, and Abdullah was the head of the Taliban. He was still the head of the Taliban. And I told them, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than that, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind that. We wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago, but she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial...
I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something, I couldn't care less. Whatever
she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read that she was not black, that she put out. And I'll say that. And then I read that she was black. And that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this. Want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris. Linsey.
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country. And they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt the person, killed the person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. She's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had. A horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad. And she can't get away with that.
Briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden. And I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible. One who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President Trump.
Let's turn to policy.
To defund the police, she has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun. She has a plan to not allow fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else. That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need to respond. The former president has said something twice that I need to respond to.
I'm sorry, we're going to respond, Vice President Harris. President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after we first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. If the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people, I have a lot of good people in this administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely supported over the last 4 years as vice president private healthcare options, but what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Linsey. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking, and then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time, when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, As I've been Vice President, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act. We have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been Vice President, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am President, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it, Vice President Ross, in terms of where Donald Trump stands on it.
I want to move to an issue that's important for mistake. And number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't called
view of politics. Yeah.
Are you a decided voter? Do you know you're voting for?
So far, no. I feel like they don't really fit me still. It's complicated. I don't know. I feel like they're both not the right candidate for me, based on this debate and the past debates. I'm still undecided.
Do you think both candidates are staying on topic when it comes to the questions?
That's a funny question. I would say yes, but they're moving around from it. I wouldn't say direct, but they're trying to get their answers across. That's what I say.
One of the topics that we just heard was about gun ownership. And then we heard Harris talking about that she owns a gun.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What's your reaction like?
I agree. I mean, there's the Second Amendment and stuff, right? And honestly, I'm fine with that, right? It's about the gun policy. It's not about the ownership of the gun. It's about what rights you have about owning a gun, the policy of getting it, right? So I don't think it affects me.
How do you like her answer? What do you think about her answer?
A little mixed. Again, they don't really go directly to the question, but I think I like her answer. I think she did well.
And then one of the questions they brought up was about clean energy, young voters, and climate change.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. How do you feel about that?
Based on what they said, I feel like it's strong. But again, neither candidate I feel like engaged me in a way for me to agree with them. I do agree that we should spend more time on clean energy and develop more technology to beat climate change. And yeah, what was the other question again? Like the other part?
The other thing they brought up was healthcare.
Healthcare.
That he didn't have a concrete plan at this point. Once he finds a better plan. What do you make of that?
Well, about healthcare, again, I didn't really do much research about it, but I think that they have both great plans. It depends on, if it goes right, oh well.
He said that Obamacare is too expensive for people. Do you think he was making a good case on that? Not really having a plan so far for him, or what do you think?
Too expensive? I mean, again, I don't really know much information about it. I mean, I just got into politics, I would say, but I feel like if I learned more and understood more and focused and learned about it more, it would be beneficial.
Do you think the moderators are doing a good job tonight?
Sorry?
Do you think the moderators are doing a good job tonight?
I think so. With all this and all the interrupting, I feel like if I was a moderator, I couldn't handle it.
Just very last question. What else from everything they've said tonight? What stands out?
What stands out? Honestly, for me, is about the crowd, right? And because I'm not used to this, right? I come from a different perspective, right? And the reason I'm here is to learn different, broaden my experience with politics. And honestly, I feel like debates are generally still the same throughout all 3 debates in the past years. I feel like they're all the same. And yeah, they're just people trying to get their point across.
Final question. They're getting to final closing statements right now. Who do you think has performed so far?
I feel like, question-wise, I feel like Harris was more direct with her answers and questions, while Trump was trying to bounce around the question and not really direct. But so I feel like Harris did a better job than Trump.
And is this,
in what we can do together.
do the answers tonight, the performance tonight, change the way you see them, or pretty much the same?
Say the same. Again, they're both politicians, right? I don't feel, again, they're not really direct. There's always obviously lies between both candidates, and I feel like they did not change my opinion at all.
And what city you live in?
I live in Waxa, North Carolina.
No problem. Thank you. Tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was the DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why has she done it? They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs. And all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Linsey Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
And we are here live on ABC with our post-debate comments on the debate for the portion with Afghanistan. They had it all, and it was historic. John Carl, fiery.
Wow. That was quite a debate. And I'm Jonathan Carl here with Barry Bruce and Ray Scott. All reporters across the news division have been rotating our live blog, looking at some of the allegations made back and forth, doing fact checks, and all of that on abcnews.com. But I would like to replay a moment at the very start of this debate, because it was quite a moment. The handshake.
Thank you.
I mean, first of all, we hadn't seen it. They're enemies now. It sought him out, pulled hands out, and also made the first round. So not the bottom line. All right.
And we'll try to get to a Discord. Clearly, what Kamala Harris is going to do is be the candidate of hope, the candidate of the future. Donald Trump seemed angry with the very serious at the beginning, never really seemed to look at really develop at some points, trying to make his point. I don't think there were a lot of policy plans on either side of that.
I'm gonna go listen because people will be sitting on the side.
And what we had was that
much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American